I've been in the house because it's a very exciting day for tomorrow. It is my father's birthday.
Oh,
So
congrats to your dad. Wonderful. How old will he be?
he will be 73 years old. He's
Oh, okay.
so
73
he's
years young.
73 years
Sorry,
young.
it took me a while to find the segment. My computer somehow the page refreshed where I found
I
it.
thought you were going to get the Rachel Dolezal picture I showed you
I was
today.
about to
I was
say,
not
me
going to get the Rachel Dolezal picture because that would have been a bit of a chuckle. But this is a ball ache. Oh,
Oh, I thought we weren't doing this.
oh,
I thought we were not doing
oh!
this week, man.
Someone sent this to us,
She has
so
lovely hair.
here you go.
I agree with that. I'm just not sure that I would say that if it weren't for blacks, there wouldn't be a democracy at all.
Well, we know how we got democracy. It was through a decades-long Black resistance struggle called the Civil Rights Movement. That is a Black rights struggle. So you may not like the framing, but what I can tell you is the Double V for Victory campaign was Black people were fighting in an army. They were going overseas. They were dying to liberate other countries and then coming home and being lynched for wearing their uniform. They were coming home and they could not vote. They were coming home and they could see German prisoners of war going into restaurants and being served where they could not be served.
I completely agree with all of that.
Right, but you want to treat that as a marginal to the American story. But you can't call yourself the greatest democracy and the greatest democratizing force in the country while violently and brutally suppressing democracy at home. And that's what happened for millions of American citizens.
Here's where I take some objection. You're talking about, if you say the country, that we were fighting for democracy overseas and we were not living it, walking the walk, talking the talk at home, I completely agree with you. But you specifically say the greatest generation brutally suppressing, many of this generation, brutally suppressing democracy for millions of Americans. Me, and I think Tom Brokaw, when he originally wrote the book, The Greatest Generation, was talking about 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds who came out of the farm fields of the Midwest, who came out of ethnic neighborhoods in Brooklyn and South Philly and stormed the beaches of Normandy and fought to defeat the worst regime, I would argue, in world history. And to say that they were 20, 30-year-olds. The country was brutally suppressing blacks, but the greatest generation wasn't.
Well, they were.
They weren't. You're telling me that a kid coming off a farm in Indiana or a kid who came from Brooklyn was suppressing
Indiana
black
had
people?
the largest population of the Klan in the United States. The Klan was
I understand, but that wasn't the 20-year-old kid who
You don't think
risked his
20-year-olds
life.
were in the Klan?
I mean, I can't say I disagree with too much you were saying, to be honest.
I got a bigger problem with this guy's like masturbatory genuflection to the greatest generation narrative, which is really a pain in the ass to me because they didn't save shit. It was the Russians who defeated the Nazis. And what is he talking about? We defeated the worst empire in there. So I was like, well, who did you defeat? I mean, the Japanese, maybe. That's number one. And number two, like, you can't.
I mean, they still fought, Pascal. I get what you're saying, but please don't underestimate the fact that people actually did fight.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no question that there were, tens of thousands of American soldiers who went and fought in World War II. Yeah, I get that. No one can deny that. But I'm not a fan of greatest generation framing at all in any way, not just in the American context. And overall, we have the same kind of dynamic in Haiti as well. They refer to certain generations of Haitians as the greatest generation. And I just think it's just kind of ridiculous. But the larger point, there's points of her argument that I find are a little reductionist. That number one, Black people are responsible for democracy in America. Number one, America is not a democracy; it's a constitutional republic. All right. Now I know that Djene has a problem with that framing, but at the same time, I think that there are democratizing things that engage in American history through the civil rights movement that are a result of America trying to rebrand itself for various reasons we talked about here before. But my whole thing is that, like, she's talking about how Black people did this during the civil rights movement and how Black folk, and I was like, but you weren't there. Those weren't you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you didn't march in the civil rights movement and you weren't facing being lynched what was going on. Why exactly do you think in any way that has to do with what you've done, which is pretty much someone who is younger than I am? I know your, pale complexion behind has never drank from a segregated water fountain in your life. So it's really kind of annoying to me how I find people, in general, glom on to this kind of historical angst as if they were there. Like, no, yes, people fought a noble struggle and did great things, but that wasn't you.
That's stolen valor, right? It's a kind of stolen valor, and there is a general discourse. If you look at it today in the United States, in Great Britain as well, where there's constant references to past political struggles by people who had no concrete experience of those political struggles. Like who today, like in Britain, like whether you agree with Brexit or not, you had people framing Brexit as this like heroic struggle that we did against the Germans in the 1920s. Like you didn't do it in the 1940s. No, none of you guys did struggle against the German, and none of you sat through the Blitz and dealt with the things like that. So I think Pascal is 100% correct on that. There's this total stolen valor as people try to bring onto themselves the perfume of the glory of a political struggle that they did not participate in, and in fact, a political struggle that they have crippled and taken off the rails through the particularities of their ideology. It is not a million miles away, if you think about it, from the way that reactionaries and conservatives talk about, well, Martin Luther King said this, Martin Luther King said that. We're just following Martin Luther King thing. Everybody is using this sort of the civil rights era to justify their present day political positions.
Very important context, Djene. Shout out to Djene Bajalan with a very, 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 Djene really inspired a very important thought in my mind with that, is that so much of our politics, whether liberal, conservative, or left, is reactionary in the purest definition of the word, in that it's stuck fetishizing the past. Many of our revolutionary nationalist leftists, or maybe our radical leftists, are stuck in either 1917, or stuck in 1972, or stuck fetishizing, the Spanish Civil War. Everyone is stuck looking at something taking glory. You know what I'm saying? There's some Haitians who are stuck in 1804. There's some Haitians who are stuck in 1946 because of the revolution of 1946. So everyone is stuck looking at the past and trying to suck glory from the past, which is the definition of reaction. And no one is talking about how do we chart a path forward to deal with this mess that
100%.
we're in right now.
And I might add to this. I know Pascal always makes fun of leftists who try and talk about the Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte and Marx. But this is a point that Marx made about bourgeois revolutionary movements, that they have to appropriate the language and costumes of the past. So, in 1848, the Napoleon III appropriated the language of the French Revolution, and the French Revolution appropriated the language of ancient Rome. And the kind of takeaway was that a revolutionary movement or a forward-looking political movement needs to look towards the future and not the past. And I think we do have this very backwards-looking kind of political narrative. So I'm not saying we have to reject everything about the past or not learn from the past, but I think we do end up fetishizing a lot of things about the past, and everybody's is trying to utilize and cosplay as if they're like Pascal says, it depends on your flavor, but whether it's like 1972, 1917, or 1968, and I think that's like a big deficit, because it's as if we lack an imagination about how we could go forward.
I think that comes from, we talk about this all collectively a lot privately, that I feel like it comes from defeat, the nostalgic look back in the rear view.
I think Jason is absolutely correct. Defeat is part of it, but I also, because to be fair, it's not simply a left or liberal project. Conservatives do it too. I think defeat is not necessarily completely incorrect, though, Jason, but I actually think it comes more from and unwillingness to deal with the difficulty of the moment at hand. There are no simple answers for what's going on right now. You know, we have a prolonged crisis of capitalism in 2008. We had this COVID phenomenon that was just abysmal. We have massive interest rates going on. We have people are literally worried about a potentiality for World War III. Everything is in flux. We have a liberal presidential administration that can't catch any traction in the face of a hardcore reactionary right that some have deemed almost fascist, and there's no legitimacy of any institution in the country.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out. You can catch the live stream of This Is Revolution every Tuesday through Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. This is Revolution.